Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm really well, Tony. Thank you.
Good. I was going to call you Victoria, and then you said only your father calls you that, and that probably takes you back to when you did something bad in childhood. So, Vicky, it is lovely to have you on the podcast. And I am really excited because I firmly believe in the power of music psychology, which I know you do as well. And in fact, with my work with NLP over the years, I have found that the intersection of music and psychology has a powerful resonance.
I totally agree. I remember when I first found music psychology. So I'd done all my studies in psychology up to degree level. I was obsessed with learning about the human mind and I suppose a typical teenage idea, what does the world look like to other people? But when I got to the end of my studies, I was determined to continue, but I had to find a specialty, something that would really speak to me. And I'd actually put myself through university teaching guitar. So
Right.
early days of Google, I literally put in psychology and a few things that I liked, psychology and
Yeah.
food, psychology and whatever.
Yeah.
And I put in psychology and music. And I found there were 2 master's courses in the UK at that point where you could study the psychology of music, which was a whole new term to me.
Yeah.
I had saved up just enough money to pay for the master's course. So that was my end game plan. Right, I'm going there. I'm going to study that for a year and I'm going to keep doing it as long as I can keep myself in clean clothes and it's still fun. And here I am 20 odd years later, still doing it.
Great. And I feel it has a huge resonance and sort of a relevance for this podcast as well. Because when it comes to sort of biohacking, making use of the power of music, especially in terms of anchoring, in shifting mood, in taking ourselves from one state to another, that is something that I don't hear many biohackers talking about, but I think can be really powerful.
Absolutely. So there are 2 completely distinct systems you're talking about there, the sort of management and maintenance of mood and emotion. Very powerful connection with music down to the neuroscientific level. If you look at the brain and what parts of the brain are activated when we listen to music that is moving to us, that is emotionally relevant to us, but also that nervous system regulation, that wider idea of how do we move between our sympathetic and parasympathetic states to serve our wellness. And music is a fantastic, portable, easy to adapt to, low cost way for people to do that on the move these days.
Yeah. So we will talk about what you're doing with Audicin in just a second, but I'm interested to know what you think about the sort of about other ways that people use sound and music to manage mood and their psychology. Yeah, I see all sorts of stories. In fact, one of the stories that I'm putting together for another podcast pretty soon is these headphones that you put on and they make you feel drunk. It's more about vagal nerve stimulation than anything else.
Right.
But really interesting idea.
Absolutely. It sounds great fun.
Yeah.
The beauty of listening to music, of course, is sexy headphones aside, you don't need any kind of particular special technology to really get into sound. Sound is the first sense you truly develop in utero. And we know, for instance, that babies remember melodies that they've been exposed to during the 3rd trimester. So your brain begins processing and remembering musical structures before you even pop out. So that continues. It's a foundational part of our communication system, of how we interact with our caregivers, especially before we are verbal. And as we grow, how we develop a social identity, how we develop an understanding of the interactions that serve us with the world around us. When I wrote my book a few years ago, I took a lifespan approach to it because you can go cradle to grave and touch on all the parts of our lives and you will find music. It's an intricate part of what it means to be human.
Oh, great. Yeah. Okay, and I just want to ask you a bit more about that link between music and potentially longevity as well. But it just occurred to me that, one of the things that I absolutely love is looking at my boy who's 6, listening
Mm,
to music, and it's it's absolutely amazing the effect that it has on him because it's so primal. It's just about whether that music speaks to him and resonates with him. And often he never will have heard anything like that at all, but you can see he's sort of got a faraway look and he's just so immersed in it. And in fact, I remember we were having a really tough time with him when he was very young and still a baby. And we just started putting music on Spotify on certain playlists. And that helped almost anything more than anything else at one point. But the way that music
mhm.
resonates for him is really amazing.
It is, and I have a 6-year-old son as well, coincidentally,
Great.
and an 8-year-old daughter, so I have seen this as well during their
Yeah.
childhoods. You're right, they react to music in a pure way.
Mm,
So you if you talk to a group of adults, and studies were done, in the early 90s, I think, in the US and Canada, when people became interested in this idea of musical expertise and what people
mm,
thought about music as adults. And so many people identified as tone deaf as adult.
mm,
Now, there is a condition, congenital amusia, where people are born with a disrupted ability to perceive music. But in terms of the population, that's around the same as lots of disordered perceptual conditions. It's around 3, 4, 5%, depending on the study that you read. But there's more like a third of people will identify as tone deaf. It's because something happens between that
mm.
childhood, pure absorption, interaction, fascination with music, and this idea of being musical as an
Right.
adult. When
Yeah.
in reality, the vast, vast majority of us are fundamentally musical.
Yeah. And I'm putting a lot of effort at the moment with my work into the intersection of longevity and behavior change and mindset, which I find absolutely fascinating. Were you
Mm.
suggesting then, when you were looking at the links of at the relevance of music through the ages and through human ages, can it in some ways help us with longevity? Because I know we're going to get onto sort of well-being and psychology, but can it actually help us in any way live longer?
The evidence is positive. It's growing, it's early days. But I'd say one of the most convincing streams of evidence I've seen is about the relationship between the release of dopamine and listening to music.
Mm,
And this has been studied in reference to listening to music and participating in music. And I should say that they're two very distinct things, and you get
mm,
different results. But even just listening to pleasurable music, we've known since Valerie Salempour's studies in around 2010, 2011, that listening to pleasurable music releases dopamine into the striatum. It releases it into the reward center of the
mm,
brain. And there are very delicate structures within the center of the brain, like the hippocampus. The hippocampus is a great example, actually, because it's one of the few, if not the only, brain area that has a unique layer of cells on the outside, which can actually regenerate stem cells and that feed into the hippocampus and make new nerves.
mm.
And this release of dopamine can facilitate this process. So it's actually regenerating within the brain.
Right.
And the other exciting examples we see is of neurodegeneration. And this can happen through accident or illness, through dementia conditions, for example. Scientists have found a significant slowing of symptoms through the application of musical treatments.
Wow. That's absolutely amazing. Um, And of course, I mean, one of the studies that's always quoted, and with good reason, is Ellen Langer's counterclockwise study. I don't know if you've heard of that one, but she sent a load of late 70s and early 80s men off to a retreat for a week or two, and all they did for a week was watch films from 20 years previously, play the games that they played 20 years previously, listen to music that they listened to 20 years previously and
Mm.
associate in every way with themselves 20 years ago. And then
Mm.
she asked them how they felt, and they felt way better, like they were 20 years younger. But she also took a load of clinical measurements as well, and that stuff like their blood pressure was better, and their gait was better, and their body were moving better as well. Absolutely fascinating. And because music works as an incredibly powerful anchor to an emotion and a feeling, which is one of the ways that they were associating with being 20 years younger in that study.
Yes, yes. Music is great for what we call the reminiscence bumps. So these phases of life where music is particularly relevant and resonates within us because we're going through particular emotional, physiological, hormonal shifts at those ages. And we know that music from these particular time periods gets stamped. We take it with us. I often get asked when I go in a taxi what I do. We all do. And when I describe it vaguely, 90% of the time, the answer is usually, well, how come is it I can remember this song I heard in 1965 and I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday?
Yeah.
The simple answer is how many times have you thought about that song since 1965?
Yeah.
It's just, we relive it because
Yeah.
we enjoy the door that it opens, essentially. We enjoy the memories that get unlocked. And one thing we know by looking at end-of-life studies as well is that lasts in the human brain. That's incredibly strong as a link. You can see people in advanced stages of dementia, people who are no longer able to speak, who can still sing, who appear enlightened and
Wow.
I'd say rejuvenated in a way. That's the right word, because we're talking about bringing them back to some degree, to that sense of connection, to that sense of awareness, to that sense of knowing that comes along with not only that sound, but everything that sound means to that person.
I just think of that film, The King's Speech, where he gets the king to sing the speech.
That's absolutely rooted in science. So
Yeah.
there's a therapy called melodic intonation therapy, which came along in the 90s, so a long time after speech therapists were using melody. But it's the same kind of idea, that this interesting phenomenon whereby post-stroke, some of the time, you will find aphasia is a common symptom, struggling with the production of speech. Even if the person can understand what is being spoken, production of speech is difficult. And in some of those cases, you will find the person can sing the same sentence that they cannot speak.
Wow.
They could
Yeah.
sing you happy birthday, but couldn't say happy birthday to you. And that's because there are distinct areas of the brain. There's an overlap, but there are distinct circuitries for song and speech. And you can use that to create links, and you can use that. So that example of the King's Speech is absolutely sounded out by science.
So you are the co-founder and chief scientist of Audicin, this incredible app. I'd love you to tell people a little bit about what that does, because we've got to call this podcast "Music Can Make You Live Longer," but I think that people are going to be out. Their appetite is now being whetted, and they want to give that a go, I guess.
That's fantastic. So Audicin is a neuro wellness app that supports nervous system regulation with brain-entraining music. So what has happened here is a phenomenal artist called Laura Avonius was producing music where she was getting feedback where people were being affected by it in a physical way. They were finding themselves feeling much better. And she had the idea to produce a product and a company to bring that sensation to the world. She's one for changing the world and making the world a better place. It's one of the reasons why I love her. But she wanted it to be science-based. She wanted it to be evidence-based, grounded in research. So she went on the interweb and she found me, and she found a fantastic engineer, lives in Portugal, like yourself, Maria Sousa Aguilar, and she is our chief audio engineer. So we're the musician, the scientist, and the audio engineer, and we're the ones who originally formulated Audicin as a way to bring everything we know, everything science has learned in the past 50 or 60 years by studying the psychology of music, by studying the neuroscience of music, all about how music can change the physiology of the body, how it can help support the nervous system in activity, and grounding that into the reality of this new science of binaural beats, which is the active ingredient within Audicin, which actually helps shift nervous system state, and using brilliant audio engineering to throw it all into 3D immersive sound, so that it's not only well engineered in a scientific sense that it will make a difference, but it's nice to listen to.
Right, yeah,
Because
which is the secret with binaural beats.
it's the secret with anything, because we've talked about dopamine
Yeah.
earlier. Dopamine is only released when we do something enjoyable.
Yeah.
So you've got to be enjoying what's going on if you're ever going to hope to get this activation of dopamine. If you listen to binaural beats in their raw state, I defy anybody to listen to them for more than a few seconds.
You've heard me talk about Dave Asprey's 40 Years of Zen before, haven't you? Yeah. And when we went off to do that, we were listening to binaural beats in their raw state. I'm pretty sure anyway. So obviously we had all the goo on our heads with all the different with all the different what are they, brainwave sensors,
electrodes.
basically. Yeah, very unpleasant experience having to wash one's hair afterwards. And then brainwave binaural beats in their raw state, and a pretty intense experience, but not unpleasant actually. I could get through it, but yeah, you wouldn't associate that with deep pleasure because it's just two different tones.
Yeah, and try doing something at the same time. Try, working at the same time, or childcare at the same time. It's, as you say, it can be intense. There's lots of auditory experiences that are really enveloping, that if you concentrate them, it's very hard for the brain to focus on anything else, because evolutionarily speaking, your brain is telling you there's a really critical audio signal and we need to work this out if we're in danger, if we're okay. So absolutely there is power in binaural beats.
Yeah.
Audicin is the next generation of how you deliver this, knowing all we do about the power of music itself.
And I know you're a listener to this podcast, and you obviously know that some of our topics are sleep and well-being and HRV, and that is some of the stuff that Audicin can help with, isn't it?
It absolutely is. So we designed it around need. So we've made songs, individual tracks that you can listen to. And for those who know their binaural beats and think, oh, I know I would need alpha binaural beats in this situation, delta will do for me now, thank you very much. Those selections can be made. And we've got brilliant composers, real composers making beautiful music. These are award-winning composers experienced in the field of music therapeutics, actually making the music for Audicin that we then engineer with all of the science into it. So once you have these songs, you can listen to them for simple purpose, or you can engage in Audicin's journeys. So one of the patent pending formulas we have is this, how you create state shift. So if you just listen to a binaural beat level, it might be okay for you, but if it's miles away from where you are, it's a big leap for the brain to make. So Audicin journeys are designed ramp on, hold, ramp off. How to get you into the binaural beat state that you want to be. And it's designed around relax, focus, sleep. We have one for commute. I love listening to the commute tracks. I'm trained, from the days of portable CD players that can't travel without music.
Yeah.
So they're based on need, but they craft the music and the structure of the binaural beats such that they meet the exact needs. And I was listening to the journey prep for presentation before talking to you.
Oh, good. Excellent. Yeah. I could have done with that last week in London for the Health Optimization Summit. And do you notice any difference in HRV when you listen?
Yes. So I've got, through listening to Audicin regularly, I've got my HRV personally. It was terrible when I started with my Oura Ring. It was early 20s if I was lucky.
Yeah.
So I'll preface this by saying that I'm a mother to a child with profound autism, my 6-year-old, who's non-speaking and has a lot of behavioral challenges.
Mm,
So it's not unusual for somebody with that level of
mm,
environmental life
mm,
pressure
mm. Yeah.
to produce a low HRV. So I'm giving
Yeah.
myself grace.
Yeah.
But my HRV was 41 this morning.
Yeah. That's great.
And we've
That's great.
studied, my favorite study recently was we looked at nurses in the US.
Mm,
Again, a population of people where if you say, well, what you need to do is reduce stress. Say, well, excuse me, sir, I'm a nurse.
mm.
What am I supposed to do with that?
Yes. Yeah.
My job, my life calling is the way it is. What are you going to
Mm,
say to an Olympic athlete?
mm,
What are you going to say to any performance optimizer who's pushing the boundaries? Load or stress is the name of the game. The problems happen with things like HRV when it's not balanced with
mm,
recovery. You were talking in a recent podcast, and I love that, about ice baths
mm.
and how you got into ice baths, and actually the stress that it added to
Ah,
your
yeah.
system
Yeah.
meant you needed like a 2-hour meditation in the dark afterwards. But
Mm,
that's a hard sell. Who's got time for that?
yeah.
So the whole idea of Audicin is to provide a tool that people can use on the go. You don't need special headphones. All you
Mm.
need is the app and press play and click on what you want. Do you want to sleep? Do you want to prepare for this presentation? Because Tony Wrighton's going to call in 5 minutes and you're hitting the roof.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just press play
Yeah.
and you invest in your recovery that way.
It's and that's the thing, isn't it? I'm just always thinking from my own personal experience about my own cortisol levels, which tend to jump quite high. And there's some people, it sounds like day-to-day life is full on for you. And actually it isn't as much for me, I don't think, as it is for you. But I still have that sort of nervous system where I need that sort of thing as well. And I actually think that regardless of circumstance now, most people, their cortisol levels are jacked up through the roof. They're on a knife edge the whole time. We don't relax very well, do we? We don't unwind in a way that our ancestors used to. Actually, we just
No,
don't.
no. And, if you think about the original uses for music, because the oldest evidence we have for musical instruments is 40,000 years old.
Yeah.
So we're talking Neanderthals.
Mm,
So our ancestors have been making music for a long time. Why is that? Why invest time and effort when survival is the main name of the game? If music isn't helping seriously in some way, such that
mm.
it's been passed down at least 40,000 years old, and that instrument was a very sophisticated bone flute made out of a bird's wing, not
Oh,
just a little
really?
old drum,
Yeah.
yeah, found in
Yeah.
caves in southern Germany. It's 40,000 years old.
Mm.
So we've been making, and they played it when they made the replica. You can play Star Spangled Banner on it. So we've been making the same kind of music for
Yeah.
a very long time. Why is that? Probably because our ancestors knew if you want to hunt well the next day, you've got to recover.
Mm.
We've got to have something. Yes, it will bind our community. Yes, it will engage with our young. It has multiple well-being benefits. But for me, my entire life, music has been my escape. It has been my recovery. It has been the way I find me and I find my reset, which,
Mm.
as you say, is so hard to do. I have my headphones on when my son is really struggling
Mm.
and having what is known in our autism community as a meltdown. And
Yeah.
I'm having to physically manage that.
Mm. Mm.
I, they say, the key to product development is to scratch your own itch. I scratched my own damn itch because I can
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
my playlist is, in that case, it's called Crisis Recovery. And it's just nice, low theta, and it keeps me calm
Yeah.
when I need to be calm for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you just away from music for a moment, do you take any supplements in terms of getting into different brainwave states as well? And does anything work like that? For example, I take GABA at night,
Mm.
and there's no way really of measuring. I don't really measure it, but I know it helps me sleep, for example.
Yeah. So the only thing I've ever found that helps me sleep is magnesium glycinate.
Yeah.
So that tends to, I found a low dose of that does help me, because I get one night on, one night off with my husband caring for my son, because
Yeah.
one of the gifts for a lot of parents with a child living with autism is chronic insomnia.
Yeah.
You know, my son can, 3 a.m. That's it. We're done. Why is it dark? Why isn't nobody else here? It's because it's 3 a.m. But
Oh
he's
no.
awake and he will
Yeah.
have no telling. So
Yeah.
when I know I am going to get a chance to sleep, I
Yeah.
need to invest in that recovery again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I can't, and I would never do anything to change my son. I
Yeah.
adore my son,
Yeah.
but the load it comes with is the load.
Yeah.
Just like for a nurse, with that calling, with our military, with our athletes, there's a load that comes with the journey that you're on.
Yeah.
So seriously investing in recovery, just like you do with
Mm.
GABA,
Yeah.
magnesium glycinate, I found works for me. And
Yeah.
on Audicin, it's all along the same lines of the tools we need in the world that we're in.
Have you ever tried any sort of mushroom blends? I don't know, lion's mane or anything else,
I
or
haven't,
something
but it's
stronger.
really interesting. I haven't, but I agree it's interesting, and I get so many ads for that. I think they know what I'm going through.
Right. Yeah. 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 It'd be interesting to know, wouldn't it?
It would.
And there's obviously quite a few burgeoning mushroom type blends and brands in the health optimizing and biohacking worlds these days as well. So yeah, I'd be interested to know about that. Right. So I mean, urge people to give it a go with Audicin, and then I wonder sort of what you hope for 5 years down the line. What are your ambitions for what you're doing and for music psychology in general, and for using music to help us feel differently?
That's a great question. So my mind is just on developing Audicin, because I I'm convinced as a person this has
Mm,
helped my life,
mm,
and that's all I've ever wanted. When I was an academic, so I trained as an academic. I worked as a lecturer in universities. My last lab was called Music and Wellbeing at the University of Sheffield. And the tagline was, we want to move from the intuitive to the informed application of music.
mm,
Now, there's nothing to say that we're using music in the wrong way and that we
mm,
can't go on enjoying music the way we do. But the way that we're instinctively turning to music in times of need can be optimized. The more we understand about music, the more we can create a sort of subgenre of music, which is functional music.
mm.
And we can keep AC/DC, and we can keep Martha Reeves, and we can keep Marvin Gaye, and we can keep, Teddy Swims for when we absolutely want to listen to them and engage with them and adore them.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
But we don't need to guess when it comes to music and optimization. We can follow the science and we can develop systems. We're already on the way. There are already brilliant researchers and scientists out there developing music therapies. We've been talking about aphasia and stroke recovery for Parkinsonian's symptoms, for schizophrenia spectrum, for autism spectrum disorder like my son. You will find brilliant researchers developing tools, and they're all different. If you're going to develop a tool for Parkinson's, you need to address the fundamental difficulty within the brain of someone with Parkinson's, which is the internal clock is being disrupted at a neurochemical level.
Mm,
So what can music introduce? Rhythm.
mm,
That's what you can provide. That's how you can help and support gait. That's how you can help improve stability. And if you do that, person experiences fewer freezes and fewer falls. They're much less likely to go into hospital and need care, and they will live longer. It's that kind of cascade effect. Is the music going to make you live longer? Not one-on-one like that, but we're seeking to develop musical tools that have significant impacts on important variables for wellness that will then have knock-on effects for positive life impact. So
yeah.
I would wish all the very best to all the researchers developing the tools the way they are, that we keep sharing the way that we do, we keep talking to each other. And in terms of Audicin, it's going to go down the line of personalization, because we know that as much as if you tell me your top 10 is going to be very different to my top 10, which is going to be very different to your son's top 10, and so on and so forth. So the answer isn't generic tools when it comes to music, because it's so personal to us. So the more we learn, the more we research, the more we will develop the tools that work the best for each individual person.
And okay, now you might have heard my new what is it, a new series really, where I've been asking people about their routines, and I'm fascinated to know about yours in terms of, well, what role music and sound plays throughout the day. It sounds like your routine varies radically from one day to the next, but bearing that in mind, what are the sort of might call them biohacks, but what are the things that you introduce into your routine that might be of interest to people listening?
Okay, great question. So I love getting 10, 15 minutes of early morning light if I can. I live in Spain, so I'm lucky. But in reality, even a cloudy sky will give you 5 to 10 times more lux than staying inside. So getting outside in the morning, and there's a lot of new research about the benefits of staying in theta low alpha brainwave state in that morning time. So I use Audicin for that. I go straight into the theta selection, play one of those tracks, 10 minutes of that with my coffee. That sets me up. It always registers as restored time on my Aura ring. It can often be the only restored time I get. But that's my little investment. And I trained my poor 8-year-old daughter that she's not allowed to come out until she sees this time on the clock. Because that's so important. It's so important to me in the day that I have. That would be my biggest biohack. I think it makes a big difference for me.
And you're sitting outside with a coffee, listening to a track on Audicin?
Yeah, headphones on.
Lovely.
Listening to a track. Nice. Some gentle stretching.
And if someone interrupts you, don't interrupt me. I'm getting out of alpha state.
Everybody knows mommy's on the balcony. No, it will not be entertained. They're really good. They're really good about it, because, I know I've communicated how important this is. It is only 10 or 15 minutes, but it makes a real difference to me. And I have then a mixture of my functional music that I can listen to while I work, while I'm doing emails and the boring stuff. I can have my Audicin on, which I know is enough to keep me focused and keep me going. But then when I am cooking, I can be dancing around the music kitchen to whatever music I want to hear. I've been into Tom Jones in the last week. I don't know why I needed a big booming Welsh voice, but I did. So
do you
get a lot of Delilah?
You get some good live music there in Barcelona as well, don't you?
Do you know what? I miss live music, having the opportunity to go to live music festivals and things like that. Oh my goodness. I used to have such fun at Latitude and all that kind of stuff. I do miss that. And there is a lot of science out there about the uniquely powerful impact of live music on the brain and the body, as a social experience. Do you know that we actually release chemicals into the air as an audience when we're in a live entertainment? And you can tell the difference. You can measure the air, and scientists have, and they can tell the difference between when people are being exposed to something that's happy and joyful versus something that's scary. Just measure the air. It's because we're giving off signals and we're receiving signals, and they're the same. And that is the social key there, that you're part of a group and that you're experiencing the same thing as other people. You're not alone. And music can bring that.
Yeah, that's lovely. So one more thing on music and routine, and that is when we go and stay with Faith's great aunt and uncle, Margaret and David, they have set their bedroom radio to come on at 10 o'clock at night with classic FM. So you'll be sitting there playing a game of cards or something, and you'll hear the wafts of classic FM coming from the bedroom, and it's a sign for everyone that it's time for bed. And it's always struck me as being particularly lovely.
It is, and I do the same.
Do you?
So yeah, we do the same. So
That's great.
the sleep songs that have been composed for Audicin, this artist Gaia, who produces a lot of those songs, she's been profoundly tickled by the fact that she's been so successful producing sleepy music, but it's actually quite hard to do.
Yeah.
Apparently, I'm not a composer, but apparently it's quite hard to do. But I use that at 8:30 systematically. That goes on, and the children know that means shower, brush teeth, and time to get into bed. And it just sets the scene beautifully. Children respond very well to cues when they're musical.
Yeah, the power of anchoring again. That's absolutely amazing. Oh, Vicky, it's been so enjoyable to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on.